What would you do if the person you trusted most shattered your world? Elliot Sanders thought he had built an unbreakable family until one fateful night when his wife dropped a bombshell that threatened to tear it all apart. Elliot Sanders, 38, seemed to have the perfect life. A software engineer by profession, he balanced a challenging career with his role as a devoted husband and father. His wife, Amanda, 35, was a creative freelance graphic designer, often busy with her projects but always present for their two children, Sophie, 12, and Liam, 8. Together, they lived in a cozy suburban neighborhood, their home filled with laughter, love, and the occasional chaos of family life. Yet, over the past few months, cracks had begun to appear. Amanda, once bubbly and attentive, had grown withdrawn. She'd spend late nights on her computer, claiming deadlines were piling up, but her explanations felt forced. Elliot noticed her phone was always face down, and she flinched whenever he entered the room unexpectedly. Sophie had also changed. Once a vibrant, talkative preteen, she'd started isolating herself, skipping her favorite activities. Liam, who was always bursting with energy, began to act out, earning calls from his school about disruptive behavior. Elliot brushed off these signs, chalking them up to life's natural ebbs and flows. But an unsettling feeling gnawed at him. He sensed something bigger brewing beneath the surface, something that would soon unravel his entire world. It was a quiet Thursday evening. The kids had gone to bed after their usual bedtime routines, and Elliot finally sat down on the couch, laptop in hand, ready to tackle some overdue work emails. Amanda walked in, her face pale, her hands clutching a mug of tea. "Elliot, we need to talk," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Elliot looked up, surprised. Amanda rarely interrupted him during his late-night work sessions. He closed his laptop, setting it aside. "What's going on?" he asked, concern flickering in his eyes. She sat down across from him, her movements slow and deliberate, like she was carrying a heavy weight. Her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but no words came out. For a moment, the only sound in the room was the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. "Just say it," Amanda Elliot urged, his worry growing. Amanda took a deep breath, her fingers gripping the edge of the mug so tightly her knuckles turned white. Finally, she whispered, "There's something I need to tell you, and it's not going to be easy to hear." Elliot's heart skipped a beat. Her words felt like the edge of a storm cloud, dark and ominous. What could she possibly say that required this level of caution? The question hung between them, suffocating the air as he braced himself for the answer that would change everything. Amanda's trembling hand set her mug on the coffee table as she finally met Elliot's gaze. Her voice cracked as she uttered the words that would shatter his world. "I've been seeing someone." For a moment, Elliot thought he'd misheard her. His mind raced to make sense of her statement, searching for an explanation that didn't point to betrayal. But her tear-filled eyes left no room for doubt. "What? What do you mean?" he stammered, his voice thick with disbelief. "It's Marcus," she admitted, her voice barely audible. The name hit Elliot like a physical blow. Marcus, her ex-boyfriend. The man who had left her bruised and broken years ago. The man Elliot had helped her escape from when their relationship began. "Marcus," Elliot repeated, his voice rising. "The same Marcus who abused you. The one you begged me to protect you from." Amanda nodded, her face etched with guilt. "We reconnected at a networking event," she explained, her words tumbling out in a desperate attempt to justify the unjustifiable. "He's changed, Elliot. He's not the same person he used to be." Elliot's chest tightened. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Changed," he snapped. "This isn't about him changing. This is about you betraying me, betraying our family. How could you do this to us? To our kids?" Amanda's tears fell freely, but Elliot's anger boiled over. "I gave you everything, Amanda. I stood by you when you were at your lowest. I helped you heal. And now you're telling me you're with him? The man who broke you." The room felt smaller, the air suffocating. Elliot's world was crumbling, and Amanda's betrayal was the earthquake that had set it all in motion. Elliot stood up, pacing the living room as he tried to process what Amanda had just confessed. His emotions swung wildly between rage, heartbreak, and disbelief. He stopped suddenly, staring at her as if seeing a stranger. "How long?" he demanded, his voice trembling with restrained fury. "6 months," Amanda whispered, barely able to look at him. "6 months," Elliot repeated, his voice rising with every word. "You've been lying to me for 6 months? Coming home to me, to our children, while sneaking around with him?" Amanda flinched at his words but said nothing, her silence speaking louder than any excuse ever could. Elliot felt his knees weaken, and he sank back into the couch, burying his face in his hands. The weight of her betrayal was unbearable. "I loved you, Amanda," he said, his voice breaking. "I trusted you. I thought we were building a life together, a safe, happy life for Sophie and Liam. And now—" His words trailed off as he shook his head in disbelief. He looked up at her, his eyes red and filled with pain. "Do you have any idea what this will do to them? To us? You've not only betrayed me, you've betrayed them." Amanda tried to speak, but Elliot cut her off. "I don't want to hear excuses. I don't care what you think Marcus is now. I care about what you've done, what you've destroyed." The room fell silent, the weight of Elliot's words hanging in the air. For Amanda, there was no way to undo what she had done, and for Elliot, there was no way to ignore the betrayal that had upended his world. Elliot's thoughts shifted to Sophie and Liam, their innocent faces flashing in his mind. The betrayal wasn't just between him and Amanda anymore, it had seeped into the fragile lives of their children. He fixed Amanda with a cold, piercing stare. "Do you even realize what this has done to them?" he asked, his voice sharp with pain. Amanda looked startled, as if she hadn't considered the full consequences of her actions. "What are you talking about?" she asked hesitantly. "Sophie barely speaks to us anymore," Elliot said, his voice rising. "She hides in her room like a prisoner, shutting out the world. And Liam, he's been acting out at school, Amanda. The teachers are calling me about his behavior, and now I know why. He can feel the tension between us, even if we don't say it out loud. They know something's wrong." Amanda lowered her head, tears streaming down her face, but Elliot wasn't done. "You've destroyed their sense of stability. Do you understand that? You brought Marcus back into your life, but now you've dragged him into theirs too. Do you think they'll ever forgive you for this? Do you think I will?" His voice cracked as the weight of his own words hit him. Sophie and Liam had always been his anchor, the reason he worked so hard and tried so desperately to make their family a sanctuary. But now their safe haven had been shattered. Amanda's silence was deafening, her guilt written across her face. But guilt wasn't enough for Elliot, not when their children's well-being was at stake. As Amanda sat there, her face pale and her tears falling, Elliot's mind drifted back to the first time he'd met her. It was at a small college party over a decade ago. Amanda had shown up late, her eyes red and puffy, a faint bruise on her arm that she tried to cover with her sleeve. She had just escaped an abusive fight with Marcus, her then-boyfriend. Elliot remembered how vulnerable she had looked that night, her hands trembling as she clutched a drink she barely sipped. He'd been drawn to her not out of pity, but because he saw a strength in her that she didn't yet recognize in herself. He'd spent the night by her side, listening to her story. Over the years, Elliot had helped Amanda rebuild her confidence, standing by her during every difficult step of her recovery. He remembered the sleepless nights, the therapy sessions, the moments when she'd wake up from nightmares crying out Marcus's name. And now, after all that, she had willingly walked back into his arms. Elliot's stomach churned as the memory collided with the present. "Do you remember how broken you were when I met you?" he asked, his voice low and steady, though the pain in it was unmistakable. "Do you remember how hard I fought to help you heal? And now you're telling me that you've let him back into your life? Into our lives?" Amanda looked at him, her face etched with regret. But her regret did nothing to erase the betrayal or the storm brewing in Elliot's heart. Elliot's anger was now a seething fury that threatened to erupt, but he held on to what little control he had left. He stood up, looming over Amanda, who looked small and defeated on the couch. The house, once a warm and safe haven, now felt like a battleground where harsh truths and bitter accusations flew like arrows. "This is how it's going to be," Elliot said, his voice a mix of authority and heartbreak. "You need to leave. Tonight." Amanda gasped, a flicker of panic crossing her face. "Elliot, please, don't make a rash decision. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. I never wanted to hurt you." He laughed bitterly, a sound so devoid of joy that it sent chills down Amanda's spine. "Counseling? Fix this," he repeated, shaking his head in disbelief. "You don't fix betrayal like this with a few therapy sessions. You made a choice, Amanda. A choice that threw away everything we built." Tears streamed down Amanda's cheeks, but Elliot felt no pity. "I trusted you," he said, each word punctuated by raw pain. "I brought you into my life, my heart, and you spat on it. And now, for the sake of my sanity and for the sake of our children, you need to leave." Amanda's voice broke. "Where will I go? What about Sophie and Liam? They need both of us." "They need stability," Elliot shot back. "And right now you are the source of chaos. I'm not saying you'll never see them. But tonight you need to go. Tomorrow we'll figure out how to explain this to them without destroying their sense of safety. But tonight you leaving is non-negotiable." Amanda stood slowly, understanding that any attempt to argue would only deepen the rift. Her shoulders sagged as she moved toward the staircase, a silent acknowledgement of the consequences of her choices. Elliot watched her ascend, knowing that the real battle had only just begun, but firm in his resolve to protect his children above all else. As Amanda packed her belongings upstairs, Elliot sat back down on the couch, feeling both exhausted and resolute. His thoughts turned to the legalities that would soon envelop their lives: custody battles, divorce proceedings, the endless negotiations over time and assets. But what worried him most was how Sophie and Liam would endure this storm. Amanda returned with a suitcase, looking more like a stranger than the woman he had loved. She stopped near the doorway, eyes pleading one final time. "I don't want to lose my children," she said quietly. "Elliot, please. Don't take them away from me." "I'm not trying to take them away from you," Elliot said, his voice heavy with emotion. "But you need to understand something. If this goes to court, if Marcus ever shows up around them, it will be a fight. I won't let that man near our kids. Ever. If you choose to keep him in your life, understand that I will do everything to make sure he's not part of theirs." Amanda nodded, tears flowing freely again. "I didn't think it would come to this," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Neither did I," Elliot replied. "But this is where we are now, and I won't let Marcus's shadow touch them." A painful silence filled the room, interrupted only by the soft ticking of the living room clock. Amanda turned and walked out the front door, leaving Elliot to confront the emptiness that now filled their home. He thought of Sophie and Liam, asleep upstairs, blissfully unaware of how their world was about to change. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the battles ahead, not just in court, but within his own heart. In that moment, Elliot knew that fighting for his children's future would demand every ounce of strength he had left. The following morning, Amanda's absence was painfully noticeable. The house was quieter, heavier. Elliot tried to distract himself by making breakfast for Sophie and Liam, but his thoughts kept circling back to the confrontation. Every detail replayed in his mind like a broken record, but one nagging question lingered above all else: what if Marcus hadn't changed? What if Amanda's decision had put her, and possibly him, at risk in more ways than one? That question became unavoidable later that afternoon when Amanda called. Her voice was hesitant, almost apologetic, as she said, "Elliot, there's something else you should know." "What now?" Elliot asked sharply, the edge in his tone unmistakable. "There's a possibility of health risks," Amanda admitted. "Marcus, he wasn't always careful. I didn't think it was relevant before, but now I think you should get tested, just to be safe." Elliot felt a cold wave of dread wash over him. "You're telling me that on top of everything, you might have exposed me to something?" To him, his voice shook with anger, disbelief, and fear. Amanda stammered, trying to justify her actions. "It was never intentional, Elliot. I didn't know I didn't think. You didn't think at all, Elliot interrupted, his voice like thunder. You didn't think about me, about our kids, about what this could mean for all of us. How reckless could you be? The phone call ended abruptly, leaving Elliot staring at the wall, fists clenched. The betrayal now felt physical, a threat not just to his emotional well-being but to his health. He resolved to schedule a doctor's appointment immediately, another bitter consequence of Amanda's actions. For Elliot, the stakes had escalated once again. Her betrayal had left scars deeper than emotional wounds. It had introduced a level of uncertainty that would take weeks, if not months, to resolve. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, phone calls, and strained conversations with the kids. Elliot worked tirelessly to create a sense of normalcy for Sophie and Liam, despite the storm swirling around them. He explained Amanda's absence in simple, age-appropriate terms, emphasizing that both parents still loved them but that some changes were necessary. In private moments, Elliot wrestled with his own emotions. Anger, sadness, and even guilt churned within him as he tried to piece his life back together. Amanda reached out a few times, pleading for a chance to repair the damage, but Elliot stood firm. He couldn't look past the betrayal, nor could he expose his children to further instability. As he finalized arrangements with his lawyer for a formal separation, Elliot began to see a path forward. It wouldn't be easy, but he knew his priority was to protect Sophie and Liam, ensuring they grew up in a safe and loving environment. In the closing scene of this chapter, Elliot sat at the dinner table with his children, laughing at Liam's exaggerated impression of his teacher. For the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of hope. They had been through a lot, but they would endure. Thank you for watching this intense and emotional story. It's a reminder of how betrayal and trust shape our relationships, and how resilience can help us move forward even in the darkest moments. What would you have done in Elliot's situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that explore the complexities of human relationships. See you in the next video.